My op-ed today over at HartmannReport.com is about oligarchy. There's a new book out about this. It's called The Oligarch's Trap, and the Oligarch's Grip. And there's a review of it over at the Financial Times right now, in which Larry Cooper writes, the book distinguishes various types of oligarchs. There are business oligarchs like Elon Musk who turn wealth into political power. And then there are political oligarchs who go the other way. I think this is a fascinating analysis. Basically what he's saying is, just being rich doesn't make you an oligarch. An oligarch is somebody who is rich and has political power. And it can come about one of two ways. Either you can acquire political power and then use that to get rich. And a great example of that is Cyril Ramaphosa, the president of South Africa. He was a union leader, an average middle-class guy, essentially, who worked his way up to being appointed to the Constitutional Commission to write the new constitution for the government of South Africa. This was in the 1990s. I think it was 94. He helped write that constitution, and a major American company had sent a lawyer over. They loaned South Africa a lawyer, and that lawyer was making the pitch for corporate personhood being in their constitution. So our Citizens United problem got written into the South African constitution. So what did Ramaphosa do? Once he got that level of political power, he left political office, used those connections, and became, in a matter of just a couple of years, a billionaire, with a B, a billionaire. And then once he became a billionaire, once he was one of the 12 oligarchs of South Africa, he ran for president using his own money, and boom, surprise, surprise, he won big time. So this is, basically what they say is that an oligarch is either someone who secures and reproduces wealth or power and then transforms one into the other. Either they acquire political power and use that to get rich, Marjorie Taylor Greene's worth 30 million bucks, or they acquire great wealth and then use that to get powerful, to politically powerful, one or the other. And the question is, what is going to happen here? Because we've got, I mean, Americans, we have this crisis of political cynicism right now, where Americans, will just tell you, our government doesn't work, our politicians are all corrupt, screw it. Let's secede, or let's have term limits. I mean, they keep coming up with these weird solutions to a problem, and they don't realize that the core of the problem is that politicians are being bribed. It's just that simple. And politicians are being bribed in America because the Supreme Court, because 5 Republicans on the Supreme Court legalized it. It really just comes down to that. Yeah, since 2010, this was, the major legalization was in 2010. And in that year, that was the year Citizens United came down, but it didn't come down until December. So that year, the politics of 2010, American billionaires spent $31 million on that election cycle, 2010. That wasn't so long, that was 13 years ago, right? That year, America's billionaires spent $31 million. Then the Supreme Court said, billionaires, you can spend all you want. And the next year, or the next election, 2012, it went to $231 million. It stayed in that neighborhood for the 2014 election. And then for 2016 and 2018, it was over $600 million. The blowout came 3 years ago, 2020, when Trump was running for re-election, and there was a real chance that the billionaires could have their guy take another term and really turn America into a full-blown oligarchy. They spent $2,362 million. Keep in mind, just 13 years earlier, or just 10 years earlier at that point, they had only spent $31 million. $2,362 million American oligarchs spent. And this election year, we're expecting it to be $10 billion. It's going to be all oligarchs all the time. I mean, this is going to be a hell of a year. And by the way, this is not something that's unique to the United States. We're seeing all around the world countries that have embraced, that back in the 70s and 80s, embraced our neoliberalism, our legalizing political bribery. And they, I mean, this started with Thatcher and Reagan. Thatcher in 78 and Reagan in 81. And now countries that were, for a while anyway, democracies and no longer are, because their oligarchs rose up and took over, include Russia, Turkey, the Philippines, Peru, Brazil, although they're kind of in recovery right now, El Salvador, the Czech Republic, Georgia, Hungary, North Macedonia, Poland, Romania, Serbia, Nigeria, Nepal, and Montenegro. Each of those countries is now controlled by local oligarchs. So why are these oligarchs putting all this time and money into running countries? Well, in part, it's self-interest. If you can acquire political power, you can use that to protect your wealth. But I think there's another, it's kind of the Kruger-Dunning or Dunning-Kruger effect here, writ large, this belief that by rich people that because they're rich, they must be brilliant. And because they must be brilliant, they must be the best person to decide how a country should be run. Whether it's, Elon Musk retweeting Nazis or Mark Zuckerberg dialing back content moderation on Facebook or Rupert Murdoch, platforming lies and misinformation. Charles Koch funding think tanks and political action groups across the nation. They all believe they're doing the right thing. They all think that they're smarter than the average bear and they should be making these decisions. But that's the point of democracy, is that you don't put decision-making power in people's hands just because they're the richest. You do it because the majority of people say, yeah, I want that guy. I want that guy's ideas. But right now we are, deeply into an American oligarchy, as I lay out in the Hidden History of American Oligarchy. And oligarchy is never a stable political or economic system. It is a transitional system on the way to authoritarianism and fascism. So either you pull back from oligarchy, and we have a chance to do that. We did it in 1909 when Teddy Roosevelt got the Tillman Act passed. It was 1908. It was right around there anyway. We've done it. We did it in the 1880s when we got the Sherman Antitrust Act passed. I mean, we've done it over and over again. We're going to have to do it again. We're going to have to say to the oligarchs, no, you can't run our country. You don't get to make the decisions. The reason people are so cynical is they know that the majority of Americans want Social Security and Medicare strengthened rather than privatized. The majority of Americans want America to have a national health care system that costs half as much and provides better outcomes, which is what every other developed country in the world has. The majority of Americans want our public schools to be high quality rather than crumbling. The majority of Americans would like people to be able to go to college without ending up, with a lifetime of debt. I could go on. There's all these things that we know the majority of Americans want that people in other countries have. They have it in Canada. They have it all across Europe, all these things. Why don't we have it here? Everybody knows. We don't have it here because some oligarch is paying off some politician someplace. It's just that simple. Because the Supreme Court, because 5 Republicans on the U.S. Supreme Court legalized political bribery. So this has to be our number one job, is walking America back from oligarchy. Because oligarchy is corrosive. It destroys trust and confidence in government. It breeds cynicism and discontent. It encourages crime. It distorts political and judicial system. I mean, look at the Trump trials. If he hadn't been a billionaire, if he wasn't an oligarch, he would be in jail right now.